What's up, YouTube? All right, guys, welcome. Hopefully, no technical difficulties today. I'll keep an eye on the chat to make sure if my sound's not going off today, as it was on YouTube last time. Okay. So today I want to talk about developing your masculine sexual power. And what does that really mean? Well, first of all, adjust my microphone here. Okay. I want to announce my free training next week, the Sex God Masterclass. It's going to be epic. You're going to learn how to have unlimited stamina in the bedroom. Any man can do this. Any man can do this. You're going to learn how to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. There's a lot of misinformation about non-ejaculatory orgasms for men, and having been doing this for 10 years, I'm going to share some of my deepest insights on the fact that it's really not that difficult to have a non-ejaculatory orgasm. You're going to learn how to amplify your pleasure during sex, your intimacy and connection. You're going to learn how to boost your masculine presence to really create strong desire and attraction in your partner. And you're going to learn natural ways to massively improve your sexual energy, your sexual health, your erections, and your overall energy levels. So I'm going to be sharing all that in my Sex God Masterclass, which is happening 1 week from tomorrow, October 13th. Sign up. Make sure you get your space. Spaces are limited. It's a free training. There's a link on this YouTube video. There's a link in the Instagram bio. So I'll see you guys there. It's going to be a live training. It's going to be epic. Don't miss it. So developing your sexual power, developing masculine sexual power. As men, our sexual energy and our energy in general, it's this quality of generation, of creation, creativity, expansion, of penetrating the world. And basically, to connect with this power, here's the thing: we've been conditioned to, we've basically been castrated from this power. To be honest, to most men growing up in this world, they learn a very distorted connection to their sexuality and a very impulsive way of expressing their sexuality, and it actually disconnects them completely from their sexual power and essentially castrates them. So the first thing is that you must own your sexuality 100%. Own your sexual pleasure, own your nature as a sexual being, without shame, without guilt, without doubt and fear. And here's the thing: we all grow up with shame around sexuality. In this, growing up in this world, we all have this. There's so much shaming around. I give this example a lot, but what probably happened for most of us is early on in our development, we're exploring our bodies. We were very young, and maybe we touched our genitals, and our parents slapped our hands and said, "No, don't do that. That's wrong. Do not touch that area of your body." What message does this send to us? It sends this message that there's something wrong with this part of me. There's something wrong and dirty with this, and so we end up just exploring it in private and developing all kinds of shame. We close this part of our body down, literally, and we only engage in it very secretly in very short durations of time. And so a huge part of owning your sexual power is overcoming shame around your body, overcoming shame around sexuality. There's nothing to be ashamed of with this. And I know there's all this programming from religion and society and just all kinds of things around our bodies and around sexuality. But I'm here to tell you guys that you don't have to feel shameful about sexual pleasure. Of course, if you're engaging it in moral, legal ways that's not against someone else's content or boundaries, obviously. But owning your own sexual experience as a human being in a body. I mean, this is one of the greatest things about being in a body. Who doesn't love sex? But unfortunately, it can become a source of a lot of misery and frustration for men because issues like premature ejaculation, sexual dysfunction, just sex being a very fleeting experience and lacking fulfillment, which is very unfortunate because it does not have to be that way. Sex is meant to be, I mean, it's as natural as eating or brushing your teeth or drinking water, breathing air. That's how natural sex is. But it's so elusive for a lot of people at the same time. So it's like coming back into this organic connection to your sexuality, which comes from exploring it This is why I always encourage men to have a self pleasure practice. It's like if you want to learn to overcome premature ejaculation, to have deeper states of orgasm, you must learn to explore your body. You must learn to reconnect with yourself. And then you can do that with a partner as well. And so owning your sexuality, because when you feel confident, when you own your sexuality, when you own your sexual experience, you feel confident in it. And this is one of the big things about sexual dysfunctions like premature ejaculation, of course, and is even like erectile dysfunction when it has to do with like nervousness, performance anxiety. It's this expectancy of like performing for someone else and just basically not owning your own pleasure as a being, not owning your own sexual experience. Loving your body, reconnecting to your body, reconnecting to your sexuality is so important. And here's a common thing for men that is often very linked to premature ejaculation, to this performance anxiety, is basically being a people pleaser, being a nice guy, to where having the validation of others and making others feel comfortable with you is more important than how you actually feel and whether or not your own needs are being met. And this is a very common pattern for men who have premature ejaculation because there's often uh, this expectancy to perform for their partner. Their whole focus becomes, well, I really want to please my partner. I want to make sure that they're happy and they're satisfied with this, but they're not satisfied themselves often, right? And what often happens is this overemphasis on trying to please someone else. It puts this burden on them. It puts this pressure on them, and then they get nervous about it. They get in their head, and you get into fight or flight mode. That's when premature ejaculation happens. That's when things don't work well like they should. And so it's really important to understand life is not about pleasing others. We learn this as a defense mechanism early on in our childhood because we're afraid if we displease our parents, maybe our parents, our mom yelled at us, our dad spanked us, said something that hurt our feelings, whatever. And so, as a survival mechanism, we start to please others. We start to basically make sure we get the approval of everyone around us, which completely when this becomes the subconscious pattern, people are carrying this around their whole life. They're still people pleasers. They're afraid of displeasing others. They're afraid of being themselves. They're afraid of expressing themselves truly. This is a huge common pattern in men in the modern world. And what this looks like in the bedroom is that you're not really able to connect with your true masculine sexual embodiment, your assertive, your ability to be a leader in the bedroom and definitely out in the world because you're so afraid of what your partner is going to think about you if you don't do things just the way you perceive them wanting it. So you're in your head the whole time and just so basically make your own focus on yourself, not in like a selfish, self-centered, like, fuck everyone else, like hurt everyone else's hurt everyone else, but just protect yourself. It's not exactly that, but it is a emphasis on fulfilling your needs, taking care of yourself, certainly, and not making it all about the people around you, like not going out of your way to try to please others. Understand that we're all responsible for our own happiness. We are all responsible to meet our own needs. You're not here to please other people. And if you're doing that, you're just wasting your time and energy and it's dragging you down in life. And just that pattern alone is when you stop being a people pleaser, you are going to really develop as a man. You're going to develop your sexual power, develop your sexual fulfillment, and own it. And I think one of the best steps out of this, like a lot of guys are asking me, like, how do I get out of these people pleasing habits, this nice guy syndrome? How do I break out of it? It really is about coming back into your own personal expression. It's about owning your own sexual expression regardless of what other people think about you. This is a very important thing to do. Here's the thing. When you're in this pattern of people pleasing, you are putting on a mask. You're appearing to be the other way. You're appearing to others the way you think they want you to appear to them. You're being fake. You're living a lie, essentially. So, to overcome that, you must learn to express yourself. truly, to say what you mean, to express how you really feel about things. And and especially in the bedroom, a lot of basically women love when men are in their primal leadership, strong, strength, assertive nature. Women love that. That's polarity. The softness of the feminine feels safe when they're supported by the strong, confident, decisive masculine. And a lot of men are afraid to be themselves in the bedroom and in the world as well, because they're afraid of like this, again, this shame, like, oh, I'm going to embarrass myself. They're going to think I'm silly for doing this. It's an illusion. It's a complete illusion. But in the first place, why would you want to be around someone who didn't like you being who you truly are? You know what I mean? So when you start being authentic, it's going to narrow down like who's a true friend and who's not. But especially in the bedroom, what really liberates a man and really the relationship is in general is when you can step into your true primal assertive sexual nature with consent within boundaries as always, but like when you're really held back, like you're afraid of making sound, you're afraid of I don't know if the like if I do this, you're stifling your life force. It creates this contraction, and your partner feels it. They don't feel safe and supported by you when you're being bold, when you're doing the things you want to do, when you're openly expressing yourself, and like being in that strong, primal, masculine, aggressive in a heart connected way. It first of all creates a lot more polarity, it creates a lot more sexual excitement for you and your partner, it creates more fulfillment, and that is also tends to be a solution for men who get stuck in their head and performance anxiety, because what they're doing is they're in their heads, they're in their bodies, they're in a contraction, basically this contractive, like self-centered, self-judging. It creates this pull, and it's actually a yin state. It's a feminine state, we could say, and it's actually pulling your partner's energy into you. And so instead of you being this young outward, filling up the room with your presence, they feel you shrinking and contracting and actually pulling them into it. And they don't feel safe with you. They don't feel attracted to that. And so being in that state of expansive, confident presence, filling up the room, penetrating them with your awareness, it creates a lot more desire. And when you're focusing on this, when you're just being yourself, expressing yourself, not afraid to just put yourself out there, you're not sitting there thinking in your head about, oh, am I going to ejaculate too quickly, which is always, a common cause of it. So owning your personal expression is the key to stop being a people pleaser, basically. And so another thing that's a practical thing for men as well, developing your masculine sexual power, is you need to have a sexual charge. You need to have sexual vitality. And when you're over ejaculating as a man, you are throwing your life force and your hormone levels down the drain. And so we've been programmed to do this as men. We've been conditioned to associate sex and orgasm with an ejaculation. An ejaculation is it's a dissipation. It's a release of your life force. It's not to say that you can never do this. If your battery's full, yeah, you can let off a little steam here and there. It's not going to be a big deal. But when you're doing this every single time, I know this is not new information for some of you, but it's always important to put out there. When you're ejaculating every time you have sex, every time you masturbate, whatever, you're losing your charge. You're drying yourself up. You're depleting and emptying your bucket, and you end up depleted. So learn to be comfortable. Well, the real thing is learn to have non-ejaculatory orgasms. Learn more about that in my Sex God Masterclass next week. There's a link in this YouTube video. There's a link in my Instagram bio. I'll be going deep into that. But you have to be comfortable holding pressure in your body, holding desire, holding sensation, an arousal, so that you can finish sex without ejaculating, at least without ejaculating every time, and you stay charged up. You lose your masculine charge if you ejaculate every time you have sex. So it's very important that you learn to have non-ejaculatory sex and incorporate the semen retention lifestyle, which isn't to say that you can never ever ejaculate. It's not that, but it's just definitely don't ejaculate frequently, and learn to draw the sexual energy through your body so you absorb that energy and charge yourself up with it. And another thing here is very important is that you exercise, you practice, you develop yourself, develop your body, develop your, physical exercise is very important to stay healthy, to have good libido, sexual health, and you feel better when you have exercise. Here's the thing, there's so much stress in our modern world. And when you're just sitting around all day, it's like you're building up this static charge of just tension, information from computers, news, information, just it just starts to overload your system. And if you don't have a way to release that, this is why a lot of people get addicted to drugs, why they stare at a screen for hours a day, because they're trying to get out of this. They're trying to stop occupying their body and get out of this discomfort because they're accumulating all this tension, all this like mental, emotional patterns that are just congested. So move your body. It helps to move this stuff, helps to release things, clear things out. Very important. And doing energetic exercises, doing qigong, doing meditation, yoga helps to opening up the energy channels so that you can really clear this excessive overload of information, stress, emotions. You can clear this out systematically so that you stay charged up and clear every day instead of just getting bogged down with a bunch of bullshit every day. And exercise yourself sexually, exercise your sexual organs, learn to sexual kung fu is all about training. Sexual stimulation is very beneficial for your health. It exercises your endocrine system. You release all these youthful hormones when you're sexually aroused and when you're experiencing sex and orgasm without ejaculating. But when you ejaculate, you lose it. That's why you want to learn to not ejaculate, at least more so than not during your sexual stimulation. And exercise, like practice managing your arousal. Like, okay, what if I breathe consistently during sex or self stimulation? What if I like move move my hips around, move my body around? What if I explore all these different ways of doing it so that I can learn to contain higher levels of arousal and a more full body state of pleasure rather than an ejaculatory orgasm? So exercise is practice. It's practice. You want to get good at something, you practice it. And from this, creating sexual confidence is really in line with everything I've been saying here. When you are practicing, when you're exploring your body, when you're exploring how to manage your arousal, it builds confidence. Because this is the thing is like usually men are just kind of like groping in the dark, so to speak. It's like I have premature ejaculation, which is basically you're stuck in a subconscious pattern. You've programmed your body to react a certain way to sexual stimulation. In your teenage years, usually is what it comes down to. And if you have premature ejaculation, sexual dysfunction, it means you programmed your sexual response to be a stress-based response from the sympathetic fight or flight nervous system. And so when you practice maintaining presence, maintaining awareness during sexual stimulation by breathing, by noticing what's happening in your body, you start to get good at it. You stop going back to your old habits and you start to create new habits. It's literally like, like becoming an athlete. You just have to train yourself to do something a different way. It's as simple as that. And when you do this, it creates confidence. It creates sexual confidence. Confidence comes from familiarity with something. So you practice it, you get good at it, you work with everything I've been talking about here, owning your expression, stepping into your power, stop being a people pleaser, start being comfortable with expressing yourself authentically, which takes practice. It can be scary at first, but you do it and you see you're not going to die. Like, oh, if I actually speak my mind to someone, I'm not going to like drop dead right then. I'm actually going to be all right. And it actually feels really good to do that. It starts to narrow down who's like really has my back, who's truly a friend, and who's just, trying to get something from me. So, yeah, if you guys are interested in really going deep into this, again, I'm going to be teaching my free Sex God Masterclass next Friday. If you want to learn how to be a sex god, so this is October 13th. It's free. I'm going to be training you how to develop unlimited sexual stamina. Like even if you only last, 20, 30 seconds, you can develop unlimited sexual stamina. You just have to understand like why what's preventing you from having it. That's what I'm going to really break down in this training. You're going to learn how to have non-ejaculatory orgasms and like a lot of the misunderstandings that are preventing men from experiencing these. You're going to learn how to experience 10 times more pleasure, fulfillment, and intimacy during sex or even during self-pleasure. It doesn't matter if you have a partner or not. You're going to learn how to develop masculine presence, confidence in the bedroom and out in the world that women will love. Your partner will find you much more attractive and be magnetically pulled to you. And you're going to learn how to maximize your sexual health, your erections, and your energy levels in natural ways. So I'm going to be getting down into all that in the Sex God training next Friday, October 13th. Sign up while there's still spaces. It's free. There's a link in my Instagram bio. There's a link on my YouTube video. Okay, with that, I'm going to answer some questions. I see the questions piling in. So feel free to type up your questions in the chat box. And let's pour my dandelion root tea. Banana Republic man, thank you. Jose Rios, what's up? GLE. Okay, Samson Cox says, so I'm in my 40s. Is it too late to turn this around when I ejaculate a lot? Well, stop ejaculating a lot. It's never too late. The older you get, the more work you have to do, but better in your 40s than in your 60s. So here's the thing. You think of it as like a bucket. Your jing, your physical essence, which your semen relates to because it requires your jing to create semen. And when you ejaculate, Gary Kleiman, what's up? Master Kleiman is here. So basically, Gary says, what's a lot? Every day. If you're ejaculating every day, you're emptying the bucket. So basically, the more empty that bucket becomes, the more work it's going to be to fill it back up. So like guys in their 20s and 30s, they'll be able to recover their energy levels quicker. The older you get, the more you have to refill. So yeah, it's never too late, in my opinion, but you just want to really maximize your lifestyle, stop ejaculating all the time, take some tonic herbs, manage your lifestyle, good nutrition, rest, look up how to rebuild your kidney yin energy. Some Chinese medicine stuff helps with that. Acupuncture, all kinds of things will help you to get your energy and your hormones back to where you want them to be. Okay, Huxley Alexander's asking, what's my opinion on jelqing? Jelqing is a common exercise that's supposed to be, it's often taught as like a penis enlargement exercise. In my opinion, it's a terrible exercise. You can really damage your penis. Basically, it's kind of like squeezing a tube of toothpaste, but into your penis. It's in a lot of like sex books, sex manuals, and like if you look up penis enlargement exercises, it's a common one you'll see. But you can do a lot of damage to your penis with this exercise. I don't recommend this personally. The tendency is to blow blood vessels, and you can do irreparable damage to your penis by using jelqing. So I don't. The original method was actually the reverse. I believe it originated in I think like Persia or Middle East or something like that. This technique, and it was actually taught is like the opposite. Like you start from the tip and go down towards the base of the penis, rather than starting at the base and squeezing towards the tip. So it over pressurizes your blood vessels, often pops them, and a lot of men have done irreparable damage using jelqing. So I don't recommend it. I prefer a method. If you want penis exercises, check out Angion method, Angion method. It's a little more. It's basically a system this guy created that develops your blood vessels in your penis through simple exercises. Soul Elixir says, I'm on a semen retention streak for 2 months. Every 2 to 3 weeks, I get wet dreams. Is it normal? It's actually fairly normal, but there's also something you can do about it. circulating your sexual energy, like reprogramming your energy to get comfortable staying in your body, working it with the microcosmic orbit. Um, I've made a whole video about this on YouTube. If you look up sexual kung fu, preventing wet dreams, just so I don't have to go too much in depth here. But basically, um, again, circulating your sexual energy. A problem is that a lot of men, they're doing semen retention or whatever, and they have all of this unresolved sexual desire. If you're horny a lot and you're just kind of suppressing that energy, it's not reaching some kind of outlet, then the outlet becomes an ejaculation in your sleep. So working with the microcosmic orbit, giving an internal completion by redirecting it somewhere else in your body. So it's not this discharge in your genitals driving you crazy. Also, getting too hot at night is a very common cause of wet dreams. Take a cold shower before bed, ice your balls, things like that will really help. But again, check out my video on YouTube, Preventing Wet Dreams. I get more into that in that video. Huxley Alex Xavier says certain herbs will help with prolonged sexual intercourse. There are several adaptogens that help. I mean, they can be helpful certainly, but like ultimately, you want to learn to do this on your own. If you're like relying on a pill to do things for you, it's you're creating a crutch for yourself. It's like why not just train yourself to be able to last long by exercising your mind and body. That's the real. That's how long term you get results instead of like relying on a pill that works for a little bit, then it stops working. So it's not really getting to the root of the issue. Leo Delson is saying, describe the best charging routine to do in a day. What are the different steps? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by charging routine. You know, you charging your battery, you charging, what are you charging? I'm guessing you're talking about just like charging up your body, your system. I prefer Qigong. I have several videos on my YouTube channel, Qigong practices. You can check that out. Yeah, practice internal energy cultivation. Cinema Guy Ty says, question, I have my cultivation sessions and work on being productive with the energy, but there's always a presence of sexual consciousness. Am I doing something wrong? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Like, are you saying you still have like thoughts about sex? Like, I'm not sure what you mean by a presence of sexual consciousness. Like, it, you know, there may always be some degree of like sexual desires, sexual thoughts, and things like that. That's fine. Just don't get like overly, if you get your whole life's like run by these thoughts, learn to develop your meditative ability to control your mind, control your thoughts, not be controlled by things. So like, yeah, this is the whole thing. When you have heightened sexual energy, you're going to have heightened sexual desire. So you have to be able to be comfortable with that and to redirect that energy, developing your focus, developing your intention to be able to drive that energy into whatever it is you want to create with that. So it's not that you're doing something wrong. It's just, um, got to keep your focus in what you want to put that energy into, basically. Here's a question. I am on 130 days of semen retention, but I edge a lot. Is that unhealthy? It's it depends how you're doing it. I made a video on this recently. Like when people talk about edging, they can be talking about many different things. It's you're gonna have your own definition of it probably, but I made a video on this on my YouTube channel recently. Like, but what is harmful edging versus beneficial? And basically, if you're edging being usually like masturbation, sexual stimulation, where you're going close to ejaculating, but you're not ejaculating. So if you're like hovering right on the edge of ejaculating, you're going to often build up like a lot of tension in your pelvic floor, a lot of tension in the prostate, build up of prostate fluid. And that will usually lead to like blue balls symptoms and maybe like wet dreams and things like that. Um, and just like general genital discomfort, maybe like irritability. If you're not circulating the energy, you're not getting the most out of that cultivation, we could say. But if you're doing it very mindfully, focusing on circulating the energy, staying relaxed, not building up too much like pressure and discomfort, then you'll be benefiting more from like that exercise of your endocrine system, we could say. So, but check out that video I made about it. My YouTube video on harmful versus beneficial edging. Bet on Yahari says, which is more important, Qigong or meditation? I find it hard to stay consistent with the practice of both. I mean, it depends. It depends what your goals are, really. And even in meditation, like it depends what your definition of meditation. Like meditation, sometimes people talk about meditation and they're saying like just like mindfulness, like thinking, I'm meditating on it. I'm like thinking about it. Then there's like meditation proper, which is like, union with absolute, which is a pretty rare quality for most people even people who consider themselves meditators to be, right? So generally true meditation is about kind of, we could say spiritual evolution, awakening, whatever that means, right? But I think we have a sense, um, kind of awakening from the illusion of physical reality. Whereas qigong is simply, I mean, it can be many different things. There can be aspects of meditation in qigong, and there can be aspects of qigong in meditation. But qigong is basically energy cultivation, opening channels, building qi in your system. Building your dantian, moving it through your channel system, making your system run more energetically effective, learning to circulate your qi and things like that. So it just depends what your goals are, basically. But I do both personally. And I think you get better at meditation if you do qigong. You get better at qigong if you do meditation as well. Official Oaksy's asking, what should I do if I find myself thinking of my ex and struggling to move on? Find some hobbies. find productive things to put your energy into. It's like, okay, that's over. It's done with. Like, you're just, and I understand, especially being in my past, I was a more kind of feminine, over emotional type of person. Um, and I can relate just how I was in my past and things like that. But like now it's like fucking move on, find something new to put your energy into, find a really big project to put yourself into to where there's nothing else to think about but the present moment. This is a pattern I've noticed in my life, is that I tend to gravitate towards activities where like I have to have absolutely all of my awareness and presence and focus in the thing that I'm doing. Um, Things like music, like I like to play very technical music. I've been playing guitar since I was 12 years old. Um, Qigong and meditation, Tai Chi, it requires a lot of you can't be thinking about other things when you're doing that to do it properly. So, find a hobby that engages your mind purely in the here and now, and, move on with your life. Gary Kleiman is asking, what's your opinion on ginger, garlic, and onions? Well, there's the common thing where I know a lot of the like systems, some of the Chinese systems, meditative systems, and cultivation systems, like the Shaolin, especially, I think, would say that these like more stimulating spices, vegetables, whatever, will stimulate your desire more and your sexual energy more and cause you to be more lustful or have wet dreams, things like that. Um, and personally, I don't see that as a problem. Like I like to have more sexual energy and more desire because I feel like it gives me more of that driving energy to work with and transmute. But having said that, I don't eat a ton of onions and garlic, but I do love ginger. Ginger is an amazing. I mean, it's one of the most common medicinal herbs in Chinese medicine. Opens all 12 meridians. So I eat raw ginger. I often have like several organic ginger roots in my refrigerator, and I'll like break off a chunk and just like chew on it throughout the day because I see there's a lot of benefits for digestion, stimulates energy, all kinds of things. So I'm not against ginger, garlic, and onions personally. James, what's up, James? Says Joe Jonathan. I'm literally just looking at Therawands in another tab right now. Would love to hear why you think the Therawand is different to other massagers. So Therawand is it's a pelvic floor, internal pelvic floor massager, which means it goes up your butt for a man, or for women it goes in the yoni. But it's a very valuable tool because most of us in the modern world, we spend so much time sitting down. Um, our pelvic floor, our pelvis in general, is all fucked up. And if you have premature ejaculation, I guarantee that you have pelvic floor dysfunctions. And so this is a way to, it's basically like trigger point release. It's like getting a massage. You have a knot in your shoulder. It's creating all this discomfort. It's pulling everything like fascia tissue. If you, this is like, say this, my shirt is is fascia tissue. So if like there's a constriction here, see how it's pulling the whole thing over? And this is what happens. Like you have this fascial knot, so to speak. It's pulling everything into one point. So everything around it's tight and not functioning properly. So when you have, because the pelvic floor is strongly connected to the tissue, the muscles in the thighs, in the abdominals, all the surrounding muscle groups. When you have a constriction or knot in one area, it can be affecting and pulling on your pelvic floor. Like the tightness may not originate in the pelvic floor; it may be coming from the surrounding muscle groups. But like because of that, uh, what I just mentioned, it affects it just the same. So basically, a lot of people essentially have these knots in their pelvic floor. And a good way to go about it is internal, basically trigger point release, just like having a massage therapist release trigger points on your body. You do it internally with one of these wands. And I like that, the TheraWand specifically, because that's exactly what it's designed for. Um, I guess that's it. Yeah, it's designed. It was designed by pelvic floor therapists for this exact reason. So that's what it's for. Zalsay is saying pre-cum can get someone pregnant? Question. Um, there's definitely some controversy on this. I would say maybe yes and maybe no. Here's the thing: pre-cum is Cowper's gland fluid. It's secreted by a gland. It's an alkalizing fluid that's meant to be released before ejaculation. There's also a lot of it in your ejaculate fluid, in your semen. Um, so it alkalizes the urethra from any like acidic residue from your urine before the sperm travels through when you're ejaculating, to make sure it doesn't, I guess, compromise that fluid. And it's a clear fluid. So the thing is that men always secrete this fluid when they're very aroused, this pre-cum fluid, the Cowper's gland fluid. But the reason why it can contain, this is my own understanding of this, and don't quote me on this. Don't like base your birth control or whatever around me saying this. I will say that I've used semen retention as my method of birth control for many, many years now with complete success, but also with an awareness of my partner's cycle, like her menstruation cycle, her ovulation cycle. And I have a pretty good understanding of like what's happening in my body after 10 years of practicing this stuff. So the reason why pre-cum sometimes has semen in it is because when men are having sex, sexual stimulating, if you get too close to the edge, like where you could ejaculate, sometimes you have this like little prostate spasm, and a little bit of sperm is released. And it doesn't, but it's not an actual ejaculation. And you don't think, oh, well, I didn't ejaculate. but a little bit of semen can be released when there's these little mini prostate spasms. And so that may seem like it's just pre cum coming out, but there's actually some semen in it. So that's my understanding of it. But of course, be careful during sex, unprotected sex, if impregnation is not a desire. All right, where am I at? Marty the Machine says, I have too much energy and am new to the meditations. Is there danger in letting it build further if I can't transmute properly? It's a good question. I'm guessing you're talking about like letting it build further. You're talking about practicing semen retention. Here's the thing. I this is going to be no nothing new for some of you who've been following me, but basically when you're practicing semen retention, you're building up more energy than your system is used to if you've been used to ejaculating regularly your whole life. And so there is this specific quality of sexual energy that it amplifies things. It's a very driving energy, and it's a very intensifying energy. It intensifies, creates pressure, creates drive. And if you have, we could say, a faulty electrical system that's used to running 100-volt current, and now you're running 300 volts through it, it's going to have issues. Same thing with your body. When you're building up more energy than it's prepared for, you can have issues. And this is why like I don't teach or recommend semen retention as a standalone practice for men. It's part of a cultivation system. You should be doing your qigong. You should be doing, meditation practices. You should be opening up your energy channels and moving this energy through your body to safely do it. And if you are, my basic rule with semen retention is if you feel good, if you feel balanced, it's great. Keep going with it. If you're starting to feel kind of fucked up, if you're feeling, insomnia, irritability, anger, like you're kind of becoming neurotic, your negative element, the negative aspects of your psyche and your emotional aspects are becoming amplified, then you're losing control and you're amplifying your dark side, we could say. So be very careful with that. Bet on Yahari says, how long do you practice Qigong per session? It varies. I do 3 hours in the morning. Often I had a pretty intensive, I was practicing from like 7:30 till like 11 or 11:30 this morning. It was just because I had the time to. Um, but in the evening, I may do a 1 hour practice, may do a 2 hour practice. Yeah. But usually when I like am in to do my personal practice, like I'm going to be there for at least an hour. But I didn't start with that. I started with 15 minutes. I started with 15 minutes. And after a month, I added 5 minutes. After another month, I added 5 minutes. Over the years, I added hours. And now I practice 3, 4, 5 hours a day, sometimes more. Plus things I do like laying in bed to go to sleep. I do other, practices to transition my system into sleep mode. But my formal kind of standing qigong practice throughout the day is usually, 3 or 4 hours. What's up, the Rafiki? Right now, well, I was talking about developing masculine sexual power. You can catch the replay, but I'm just answering. I'm just doing a Q&A right now. Nathan Karoka says, are there any exercises for partners during sex, either to amplify orgasm or the energy energy exchange itself? Yes, this is what sexual kung fu is all about. This is the partner practices of sexual kung fu. And I teach these things in my courses. I'm going to be sharing some of the stuff in my Sex God masterclass next Friday. It's free. Links in the YouTube video, links in the Instagram bio. So what you're doing in your own within yourself, with your body, with the qigong practices, the microcosmic orb, all these things, it's preparing you for what you're going to do with a partner, because you're going to be linking your channel systems together. You're going to be linking and consciously exchanging your sexual energy together. And that's where the rubber meets the road, baby. That's where things get real powerful. Alex W is asking, Jonathan, how often are you ejaculating these days? Well, as I often talk about in my videos, my personal frequency is about once every 4 to 6 weeks. Haven't experimented with many timelines longer. Obviously, I used to ejaculate every day. That doesn't work. 4 to 6 weeks is a sweet spot for me, because it seems like, for me anyway, the endocrine system needs kind of a reset at some point. If I just go forever, uh, my testosterone lowers, my sex drive actually lowers, my erections get weaker. So there seems to be like, and a lot of the Chinese classical texts talk about this as well, that like going too long can be as harmful as ejaculating too much. Like the Yellow Emperor's classics, things, some of these other texts, Pengzu stuff. So yeah, that's my timeline that works the best for me, is for every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's having lots of non-ejaculatory sex, lots of cultivation practice, and I wouldn't ejaculate without a minimum of 20 minutes of sexual stimulation, plus really absorbing the energy, so that I actually don't feel much of a difference after ejaculating. That's kind of the context of it. I'm not just like jumped on Pornhub and sneezing onto a tissue. Angion method, which is the penis exercises that develop better erections, way superior to jelking. Jelking is going to mangle your dick. It's spelled Angion. Angion. Props to Janice Bifrons, who created that exercise system. A lifetime of research, and it paid off. Relaxing aura says, does semen retention help strengthen the root chakra? Uh, Most likely, yeah. I mean, it definitely like tends to amplify energy in the lower chakra centers. So for sure, the key is though to balance that energy with the rest of it, or rest of the centers, the upper centers. Angion method, Angion. Miguel Garcia says, any recommendations or breathing exercises one can do to loosen up tension or loosen up in order to attempt to do a prostate massage? Well, just lay on the ground and breathe deeply into your belly and release tension on the exhale, just like progressive relaxation. Relax your scan through your body, release all tension. You can also use like the pelvic floor stretching routine. I have a really great guided 12-minute pelvic floor release video on my YouTube channel. Just look up sexual kung fu pelvic floor release. That would be a good thing to do as well. Yeah, just relax, man. Just relax. Goodwill says, please demonstrate a brief microcosmic orbit breath. Well, here's the first kind of misunderstanding, is that kind of the overemphasis on breath with the microcosmic orbit. Now, I know it's an important aspect of like teaching it, but when we see the microcosmic orbit practice as a breath, as a breathing practice, we get stuck in the superficial aspect of it. Like, okay, I must do this type of inhale and this type of exhale. Eventually, breath becomes irrelevant to really all energy circulation. But with like the microcosmic orbit, it's an internal energy practice that you pair it with a breathing cycle, just as like a training tool to like help link that with like a physical process. Having said that, this is what you do. Um, Imagine you inhale. As you inhale, again, you could do it while exhaling too. It's not that important. But as you inhale, think of there's like a bubble, and it's moving up the back of your body, and almost like it was under your skin, like creating this like squeezing something through a tube. So you inhale up from the spine, from the perineum up the back to the crown of the head. I mean, my back channel lights up just thinking about this now. And then You exhale, and it's like it's like the bubble, tongue against the roof of the mouth. It's like it drips down the front of the body. There you go, microcosmic orbit. And of course, there's many aspects to that. What really unlocks the microcosmic orbit is building enough chi pressure in your dantian. Otherwise, you just don't have like much juice in your battery to run through it, which is why most people don't feel it right away. Mishiusa says, "What do you recommend for someone feeling super lonely?" I recommend you get out in the world and like do some sociable things. You'll go to classes, go to social gatherings, like hang out with people, go do things, but also like get to know yourself as well. Like go for walks in nature, talk to the trees. We're getting some hippie shit now. Have a conversation with yourself even. But definitely, if you're feeling lonely, connect with people, get out, social gatherings, classes, meditation class, yoga class, tai chi class, whatever. Go martial arts classes. Go meet people, hang out with people. Goodwill saying so. It's more visualization. No, it's not visualization. It's feeling. If you just sit there in your head, like imagining the microcosmic orbit is like this visual image thing, that can help you connect with it. But it's you use your mind. Like, what would it feel like if you were pulling a bubble up underneath your skin? It's you're bringing your mind into your body. It's and it's kind of this kinesthetic awareness of that happening. There doesn't have to be any visual component. In fact, it will for me it's more powerful if I'm not trying to visualize. I'm more of a feeling sense type of person. I was never a very visual person, so like trying to do visualization based practices never worked very well with me. So it's a feeling sense. You're feeling the channel, and as it's hard in the beginning because you don't have much chi pressure, so there's not much there to feel. But as you practice it over time, especially as you're doing like other qigong practice and really building your chi, it it feels as real as anything. Oh, the Dantian. All right, Mr. Angel 47 is asking, can you talk about storing energy in the Dantian? What about two other Dantians? Can we as well visualize a ball spinning inside of them? I mean, you can do that. The whole thing though is that with the Dantian, you have to really focus on the lower Dantian for a while. And there's different systems. Obviously, a lot of the like yoga systems, they start from the head. They're working up in here almost exclusively, but I've had the best results in the most like concrete foundation for sustainable practice by working with the Taoist methods of building, kind of building the house from the foundation up, working the lower Dantian. Basically, I mean, all you really need to do to build the Dantian is hold your awareness in there, but over long periods of time, get into a very deep, like theta state of meditative awareness. But this is very difficult for people in the modern world because their minds are so busy. I mean, I found it very difficult to work with the Dantian initially, but basically you've got to find the center of it, which if okay, so the chi hai, which is a point about 2 finger widths, well, technically 3. Let me just show you. Here's my navel. I put 2 fingers under my navel, and then I have 1 finger right here. That's my chi hai point. That's the front door of the Dantian, we could say. And then from the hu yin, which is the perineum point between the genitals and the anus, if you draw a line straight in from that chi hai point I just mentioned, and a line straight up from the hu yin point, where they meet forms a crosshair, and at the middle of that crosshair is going to be about the center of the Dantian, and that's where you want to hold your awareness. But there's a difference between truly holding your awareness in that area by allowing it to like sink down and just be anchored there versus like trying to project from your head where you're actually still centered up in your head. This is why a lot of people never really develop the Dantian, even doing Qigong their whole lives. So basically that's it. And you can amplify it with like um, connection to the palms. Some Qigong systems teach this. I drop some of this stuff into my trainings, like how to connect your palms to the Dantian. So the Lao Gong like drives the Qi and helps to hold it and create this magnetic field in the lower belly because the Dantian isn't there for most people. It's something you have to cultivate. It's just an empty space for most people. Um, so yeah, that's lower Dantian. About the two other Dantians, which varies from system to system. Some systems of cultivation say the middle Dantian is the solar plexus, and that there's one in the throat. I think more commonly they say that the middle Dantian is like the heart center, and then the upper Dantian is the Niwan, the center of the brain, more or less where the pineal gland is. And as far as building those, I mean, my experience has been that you think of it as like coming back to this analogy of filling a bucket, where the whole body is now a bucket, and each practice session is like putting a drop in that bucket, drop by drop by drop by drop, and eventually, finally, you fill up this lower part. You have your lower dantian established, and then the more basically you continue your cultivation over this takes years. It's not a quick process. You can't do this in like a month or 2 months or even maybe a year. Um, the more that bucket fills now, drop by drop by drop, naturally the middle dantian eventually comes online because basically it's just this chi pressurization where it starts to extend. My understanding is that eventually it's almost like the whole body becomes a dantian, which also relates to the central channel opening and pressurizing. Um, because for me, naturally, through an extension of my dantian practices, my solar plexus, the yellow court area, started to become energized as well. Like this whole thing felt like my dantian, and then it started to uh, further pressurize up into my middle dantian as well, my heart center, whatever dantian that is, depending on the system. But there's also practices where, yeah, you can specifically focus on the middle dantian, focus on the upper dantian, and it'll be pretty much the same techniques. But you don't want to work with those too quickly without having a properly established lower dantian as a safety vessel. All right, we just nerded out on some Tao cultivation stuff, but I love this shit. This wasn't important to understand for just like sexual mastery stuff, but for internal energy cultivation, it's essential, man. You even have a dantian activated, bro. Where was I? What's up, Soul Flame? Okay, Cinema Guy Ty says, when are we getting the book, Jonathan? I'm working on a book. It's a time-consuming process. I will say that much. I was hoping to have it done by the end of this year, but I don't think it's going to happen. I don't know. It may be another, I can't give out any timelines. It could be like a multi-year project still, but I'm hoping next year to have my book out. It's going to be great though. I have a couple chapters made. I'll keep you guys updated. But the thing is like I need to rent a cabin in the woods and like just lock myself there for a month or two to finish the book. Otherwise, I just keep writing things here and there as I have time because I have a lot of projects. I actually have a massive thing I'm about to announce soon, which is pretty exciting as well. So, all right, but it's coming eventually. Yeah, I'm taking my time. Soul Flame says, "Take your time. It'll be finished when it's finished." Exactly. I can't rush this thing, and it's a lot of damn work to write a book. It's a lot of work, but it's going to be great. The thing is like most books on like male sexual practices are just like regurgitations of the Montauk Chia stuff, which there's a lot of good stuff, but like it's like if you read Multi-Orgasmic Man, you've read all these other books on male multiple orgasms on the internet, which is just it's the same old shit. Squeeze the PC muscle, squeeze, it's like it's cool, but like that's the practice has evolved beyond that quite a bit, and like I'm ready to drop some very fresh info out there. So it'll be coming when it comes, but I won't be. You know what I'm saying? Nathan Kuroka says, "Have you experimented with different frequencies during your practice?" Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if you mean like playing sounds, like having tones playing, or like crystal bowls, or like toning with my voice. uh, energetic sounds, vibrations internally, kind of Shen level. I've done most of the above. What I've found to be relevant in my practice, I do some like toning sounds. Like I learned some like a toning sound that vibrates the lower dantian, which is cool. It's a little more advanced though. And there's also a practice I use that I teach in like a lot of my workshops. Like I taught it at the retreats, in-person retreats I did, where you use vibration to clear and open their energy meridians, and you can experiment with different sounds, different tonalities with that. And then there's also like the sound current as like a meditative practice where there's a certain Taoist internal alchemical practice I do where um, you're creating certain connections. We could say you start to hear this tone in the ears, and my teacher taught me to basically you listen to the sound current, which is kind of it's like it's behind or in front of everything else. It's very subtle, but then you hear it and it becomes when you can really focus on it in a certain way, it becomes very, very loud. And then you guide it. You'll hear kind of shifting left and right channels. The goal is to guide it into the central channel and then guide it because it's usually coming up from the crown. You guide it down the central channel and into the Dantian. I had a very interesting experience doing this at a retreat this summer where so I heard the tone and I started to feel it. It was like this like static, this frequency moving. It was all these different frequencies, but I really zoned in on one, and it was like I just felt it like this like electrical zzz around my crown, and I felt like I really isolated it and brought it into my knee one, upper dantian, and then this very alchemical process happened where it crystallized into jing. So it was like I heard the sound and then it became this like electrical bzzz in the head. And then it like solidified in my upper dantian. And it was like a drop of something thick and liquid, dense, dripping down, like very, very tangibly dripping down my central channel and like dropping into my dantian and crystallizing and like effervescent fizzling. Very alchemical process, like straight out of like some of the alchemical texts I've read. So very interesting. Um, so yeah, I've experimented with frequencies. Andrew Bain says, "Do you practice or suggest any other energetic practices like Toltec practices?" I've practiced all kinds of stuff, all kinds of things, and the ones I suggest are the ones I teach. So, yeah, because I found them to be the most practical and effective over time. But there's many methods of energy cultivation. All seems like all indigenous traditions, which we all come from, indigenous traditions, have their own practices. Some have been more suppressed than others. But it's just like what works for you. For me, it's like what's the simplest and has the least like dogmatic baggage behind it. Less like yeah. Goodwill one says metaphysical question. Christ said, "Let thy eye be single." Might the Dantean energies merging together be related to what he was saying? Yeah, I mean, you could translate that all kinds of ways. My understanding is like just understanding that getting out of polarity. Coming back to Taoist alchemy, one of the goals of Taoist Neidan, Taoist internal alchemy, is to cultivate yuan qi, which basically like coming back to source energy, because source energy is unpolarized, it's pure, it's unconditioned. All postnatal chi, as it's known, which is all the energy, all the chi that we're cultivating here in the manifest world, the physical, the later heaven, it already has some degree of conditioning, it already has some degree of programming. So we could say it's almost contaminated in a certain sense, that it's not as pure as like connecting to our original source chi, which is unprogrammed, unconditioned, completely neutralized, completely neutral, and it's a very potent chi to be working with. So I think it has more to do with like coming back to the neutral force, neutral source, unpolarized consciousness. I don't know. We're really going on a tangent here, but that's all right. Okay, here's a let's reel it back in. Something practical. I am infinite being says, when should we start moving the energy up? On the 2 week mark of holding, or we can do it after 3 days. Like if you're talking about circulating the sexual energy through the body, you could do it right away. You can do it on day one if you want. In fact, the more familiar you that's why I recommend practicing the microcosmic orbit just as like a standalone practice, and then just you want to really get comfortable with that pathway, and then start playing with moving your sexual energy through it. But yeah, you can do it at any time, and like the whole thing is you want to keep your energy flowing through your body so it doesn't just get overly built up in the genitals and make you excessively horny. Nathan Kuroka says, "When is your next in-person retreat?" I don't have one scheduled currently, but I'm definitely hoping to do several next year. I had a qigong workshop set up November 11th here in Nashville. November 11th, 12th, I was going to do it. Like this fucking venue. I'm not going to mention the name, but very unprofessional experience, I will say. Contacted a place. They is this hotel in town that had this amazing like venue space, and the thing was, it was confirmed. They're like, yeah, well, you're confirmed for the dates. Send us the website. Send the website, and like I start. I sent out an email to people on my retreat waitlist about it, and then the next day I get an email from this place saying, "Oh, actually, the space was already booked out, and it's not open for the foreseeable future." I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why did you confirm it then?" Yeah. So I'm looking for another space to reschedule that because I want to do just like a weekend qigong workshop where we go into more of this nerdy stuff I'm talking about activating the dantian, circulating qi through the body, and all that stuff. So it's coming. That'll be here in Nashville. But yeah, definitely more in person retreats in 2024. Not Will Blunderfield. What's up, Will? What's up, my brother from Canada? Says, have you come across any other sexual kung fu type practices from other cultures, such as the Celts? Yes, but not so much in like the man talking about like indigenous origins that have been suppressed. A lot of the European ones just like decimated. Um, I've seen only like bits and pieces, but nothing like a system of cultivation. Like a lot of books where there are people like, well, I channeled this from, and you're like, okay, like is that really, you know? So yes and no, nothing too tangible or concrete, I will say. But I've been actually interested in that as well, as I've been diving more into like some of those origins, Celts and Nordic heritage and things like that, because they had their own energy cultivation systems. Okay, Florian Lyon says, "Hi, Jonathan. I feel like whenever I'm getting intimate with a woman, I'm wearing a mask. I feel like I wouldn't be attractive for any women if I just be me. Do you have any advice?" So this is the whole. Yeah, this is a very relevant thing. A lot of men, a lot of people, just in general, maybe most people, this is an issue. Basically, I don't feel like people will like me if I'm myself. I don't think people would like the real me. I'm really think about that. Think about that. I don't think people would like me. Where does that come from? I've had this as well. So I'm not like, shaming someone. It's like, yeah, this is a very common thing. Coming back to our childhood conditioning, comes back to, your when we were a child, when we were children, we were exuberant and just like we said whatever was on our minds, and we were just like full of energy. And most adults can't handle that because they're rigid and miserable, and, and you know so inevitably we get in trouble, we get yelled at by our parents, and like we're so open, maybe we even get physically harmed, and it makes us shut down, and we start to say, wow, it's not safe. I'm not liked. My mom, my dad, which is your whole world at that when you're very young, like they do not like who I truly am. So if I want their affection and approval, maybe like maybe they'll stop feeding me if I don't approve. I have to be someone who they like. And so we carry this pattern into our adult life. It's a dysfunctional pattern. It's not true. So this coming back to, this is just a people pleasing habit. You learn to like, what you're doing is just trying to please everyone around you by wearing this mask and just, yeah, yes, I'm so happy. I love my job. I love taking Xanax every night. you know, uh, no one's happy doing that. So basically, what I encourage you to do is to experiment with being yourself. Start to be a little more honest. It's it can be difficult. It's scary. It's and to be honest, I feel like I've only really, I mean, obviously to have done what I'm doing, I had to be pretty out there anyway. But like, it's been a process for me. But I feel like in the past year, it's like I've really, really, really undone a lot of this like people pleasing habits of my own. You can look back on my videos on my YouTube channel over the years and just see how much I've changed and like how much more, kind of free I am with my expression now. And it's just here's a practical tool. When you're in a situation, a social situation with someone, and you feel that like the self judgment, they wouldn't like, what they're thinking about you're thinking about like, oh, what am I going to say? Is it going to be weird if I say this? How do I look? You're just like completely in your head. I Here's what you do. You notice yourself doing this, you smile to it, you accept it, and just notice where you're tensing up in your body and just let go. Oh, let it go. Breathe. Let go of the tension and allow yourself to be fully in the present moment, getting out of your head and fully, and just like allow yourself to be there. And I'll so you're coming back into what's real, into the present moment. You're getting out of your head and into this like retraction and this. You're closing yourself off when you're doing that, um, as well. And and so just notice that and see if you can just release the constriction, release the tension. Notice you're doing that and like accept it, and like accept the intensity in a social situation, because what we're trying to do is we're usually trying to avoiding the feeling of like what they're looking at me. We're trying to avoid it, we're trying to suppress it, so we distract ourselves by like all these worrying, and like allow yourself to feel it. Feel the anxiousness, feel the nervousness and the perception of others, and embrace it. Breathe into it, relax into it, feel it 100%, and like don't try to change it, and then just allow yourself to express. And I encourage you to like try being a little more direct in your communication. Like start small, just being honest with people. And it can be painful at first, it could be difficult, but like when you see that it's not like your life doesn't end because you're starting to tell the truth. Essentially, we've all been telling lies, we've all been wearing masks, and like uh, and when you start to tell the truth, yes, some of it may challenge some of your friendships and relationships, and that's a good thing because it means that they were not built on reality. They were not built on a real human connection of authenticity. They were built on a fucking lie. Why would you want to maintain patterns in your life and friendships that aren't true? They aren't real friendships. So your life will get a lot more deep. It's not an easy process, but it's so fucking liberating. So I recommend everyone to work on that. And Andrew Bain, I think this really just touched on your question as well. Is like you just like the same thing in sex and relationships. Is like in intimacy. It's when you want to do something, do it. If of course with partner's consent, anything within your partner's consent. But like this was a thing. Was like early on in even my current relationship, I was a lot more stifled and kind of still a bit closed in at the beginning of my relationship, and I would withhold things. I wouldn't really say my true desires and like my sexual desires, and I was really like held back. And once I started practicing just like telling my partner, "Hey, this is what I enjoy sexually. This is what I want sexually. Like this is what I'm into." And being a little more like bold and assertive during our intimacy, it showed me that like she enjoys it, she loves it because it's me being more in my masculine, more being in this authentic, vulnerable but truthful state, and leading her into what my true desires are. So yeah. Marty the Machine says semen retention, first time making it a month plus. Good job, Marty. Marty the Machine is a machine. Mr. Angel says, "What is your daily routine? Energetic practices, etc. What is your end?" Okay, well, my daily routine is 3 to 4 hours of internal cultivation practices. 3 days a week, I work out at the gym. 3 or 4 days a week, I do weightlifting, weight training. Spend some time in nature, and then I do my work. Throughout my week as well. I'm creating my content, doing trainings with people in my programs, calls, things like that. So I work, I practice, cultivate hard. Some sexual cultivation in there too, baby. Spend some time in nature, exercise my body. I mean, that's the majority of what I do, to be honest. My other hobbies include I play music as well. I play guitar. I compose music. It's been a hobby of mine. Martial arts, meditation. The cool things. I like to unwind on the weekends, just chill, spend more time in nature and hiking and things like that. I like to watch movies sometimes. I'm just a human. As far as my end goal to reach spiritually, mentally, physically, I just want to be fucking. I want to go all the way with everything. I want my life to be a training montage, and I think it is already. But I mean, physically, I want to be extremely healthy. I want to be. When I'm 80 years old, I want to be as horny and high libido as a 20-year-old. And I'm hitting the gym game. I'm hitting the gym gains too. Gym gains. I want to put on some more muscle and spiritually, energetically. Spiritually. I mean, I want to reconnect with source. I want to levitate. I want to shoot lightning bolts out of my hands. I don't know. I want to go all the way with everything. Basically, I will say that. Nathan Kuroka says, "Could you share any advanced breath work?" No, because I don't. I consider breath work to be. This may offend some people. Are like, I'm not trying to like talk down on breath work. I just don't see it as a particularly advanced practice. It's an amazing practice, but like, I mean, maybe you could say advanced breath work would be like being able to hold your breath for 10 minutes underwater. Yeah, that would be advanced breath work in my opinion, I guess. But like, I see breath work as a little more superficial compared to like qigong and energy cultivation. Breath work's an amazing tool. You can create powerful physiological, balancing and effects. Like you can have like psychedelic type experiences with the breath. But I found it to be superficial compared to like the depths of internal energy cultivation. Like I've gotten way, way, way deeper, way higher with qi practices, meditation, internal alchemy, qigong practices than I have with breath work. And there's an element of breathing within them often, but it's very subtle. So I don't know. That's my answer to that question, I suppose. Mr. Angel, embryonic breathing from Taoism. Do I know something about it? I mean, I've heard it's another one of those things where like it's in the classic alchemical text of Taoism, embryonic breathing, but like pretty much everything in those texts, systems of cultivation now all have their different definitions of it. Like Montauk Chia says embryonic breathing is just like holding your breath out on the exhale and like sucking in the belly, which is a very I personally don't think that's it, because that's a base. Like you can take an absolute beginner and they can be doing that. Like how would that be like an end result of like this alchemical process? I've heard other people say that embryonic breathing is the microcosmic orbit. I've heard some people say embryonic breathing is just like very, very soft and slow breathing to where it's like 1 minute for an inhale and exhale. I've heard some people say embryonic breathing is where the physical breath completely stops and it's just like you're in this breathless state. So like, I don't know. I've heard about it. It's just a term, it's just a word ultimately. And like there's different states that I've achieved in my practice, but it's why it's good to not get like too attached to like concepts and words. I feel like this is, well, never mind, I'm not gonna go into that. But basically, people often get really hung up on like words. Like the people the who teach practices, and it's like they almost use this like terminology to like, okay, I'm using these like certain like esoteric terminology to like convince everyone that I really know what I'm talking about. And like sometimes they are, but sometimes they're just the scholarly type who actually have a very weak cultivation practice. So it's like, I don't know, with all the stuff you have to just, I'm a practical person. I'm a pragmatic, and I'm a bit skeptical too. So I'll end with that on that one. Feel free to share your embryonic breathing practice. I'd love to hear. We are all ones. Jonathan, when will be the next 6-week course? 6-week course. You must have some probably some of my older videos where it was a 6-week course, which it's been. I think it's been like 2 years or something since it was a 6-week course. But morphed into a 12-week course. My main course will be opening very soon. I will say that. And again, guys, I want to remind you to sign up for my free Sex God Masterclass next Friday. There's a link in my YouTube description. There's a link in the Instagram bio. All right, just a few more questions, then I'm going to jump off of here. Moshiko can you elaborate on the difference between tantric sexual practices and Taoist sexual practices? I know the energy movement practice is a bit different, and breathing is also different. Yeah, so tantra and tantric cultivation is usually very central channel focused. It's usually very ascending energy focused. Kundalini, this upward blast of like reaching heights of spiritual ecstasy. That's usually the focus of tantra, and that's cool. That's cool. That's fun. It's good. It's kind of like here's a comparison. Whereas Taoist sexual practice in general, and of course, there's even like there's different systems within these. So it's like I don't like to be too like make generalizations, but just my own takeaway from having studied both systems, more so the Taoist one, but I also have studied Tantra and Tantric practice, Tantric yoga. Um, the Taoist practice is more about it's this up down, yin and yang, heaven and earth, like microcosmic orbit perfectly exemplifies this. It's this ascending energy up, but also descending down. So it's this heaven and earth, this up and down balance instead of a one-way trip, just trying to blast into oblivion of spiritual ascension. It's grounding and embodiment. And it's also like, oh, what about the leg channels? What about the arm channels? What about the earth energy? This whole macrocosmic thing. So it's just a lot more. To me, it's deeper in a certain sense and more in depth and appropriate for I don't know, just wanting to be a person living in the physical world, in the modern world. And so maybe a good comparison here. Let's talk about drugs. Let's talk about drug comparisons. Tantric yoga, the Kundalini experience, that's like LSD. That's like blasting my crown. You know, I've done that plenty. The cosmic orgasm, like blast out of my body experience. That's cool, but it can be very shattering to your reality. It can be it fries some people's systems. Like some people, their nervous system gets a little fried. Kundalini psychosis type stuff, like even like times 10. Think about like the acid trip that never ends type of stuff. Whereas the Taoist cultivation, the Taoist thing is like it's more like, it's like a mellow summer hammock morphine type of thing. Just like it just feels good. That's a ridiculous comparison. Like LSD versus morphine is like Taoist practice versus um, tantric yoga practices, but it's a little more like here in the worldly life and just feeling good with everything. Like, okay, there's that up there. There's this like crazy psychedelic reality up here, but there's also this like deep embodied like I'm a kid playing in the sandbox type of world down here on the earth as well. So it's like a little more of the balance between the two rather than this like, you know, DMT psychedelic blast off. And in general, Taoist breathing techniques tend to be a little more like gentle, like less forceful, less like hold the breath and fucking blast the energy out the crown. It's more just like, oh, let's just allow, breathe it through the orbit. Ooh, breathe it through the Chiang Mai, the 8 extraordinary meridians. Ooh, that feels nice. I don't know. This is probably like sacrilegious to some people who are practicing these things. Like this fucking guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Okay. There's a question from Andrew. When I start semen retention or no fap, I start to feel weird. Is that normal? You're going to feel different. Here's the thing. You're you're used to being in a state of depletion, this numb state. So like you're starting to rebuild some energy, rebuild your system a little bit. Now you have more energy available. Your energy is heightened, and it's going to feel different. You're going to feel different. And if you don't have outlets for that energy, if you don't have a body that can hold that energy, if your nervous system isn't balanced, like you may not be able to handle it. This is a common thing that that people run into in like internal cultivation or just semen retention, is that they're building all this energy from intense energetic practices or just by practicing semen retention, but they're not really doing anything with it. It's like, well, I'm still fucking playing video games and just the same old job I hate. It's like, I don't know why I can't sleep and I have like this excessive nervousness. It's like, bro, you have 10 times the energy and you're you have the same life you had before. You're not doing anything. You're not have a higher energy output. It's like you have to do something with that energy. If you want to have more energy available to you, you have to increase your output as well. You need productive outlets to put that energy into. So just an important thing to be aware of. Hey, thanks, Will. I'm glad you enjoy it. Florian Lyon. All right, this is good. It expands on what we were talking about before. It says this is relating to my earlier question. So we're talking about kind of not being able to express, not feeling safe to express yourself. Basically, it says I also have the feeling that I'm somehow suppressing my more dark male aggressive when I'm with women or in women. I'm scared to use it. How do I deal with that? So yeah, your masculine power, basically, your masculine like intensity, I think is the word here. First thing, what I've been talking a lot recently is like we're strong masculinity is being suppressed like crazy. It's being driven out of us. I mean, this has been going on for decades now, and it's only intensified now. It's beaten out of us as kids. We're literally taught to not have masculine behavior. You know, having our own opinion, speaking back at the teacher because we don't agree with the bullshit they're trying to shove down our throats. Uh, you know, assertiveness, talking loud. These are suppressed qualities basically in our modern world. They're shamed. They're seen as like dangerous and all these things. You know, the whole toxic masculinity thing. And so yeah, men are afraid of their own masculinity. They're ashamed of it. And this kills relationships. It kills polarity because now you're like just this timid, like, well, I'm just gonna, do what I think she wants me to do, even though and this is one of the main reasons why sex dries up in relationships, why men struggle with dating and all these things, is that polarity is becoming neutralized in our modern world. So it's important to understand that. So as far as this, how like tapping into your aggressive side, I will say what helped me personally. Martial arts was a big one, but like also just like, like try primal screaming. This is a great exercise. Just yelling at the top of your lungs. I would do it right now, but I won't deafen you guys. Screaming into a pillow. Get a pillow and just like you're about to kill. Well, I don't want to say like you're about, like you're a fucking warrior and you're about to go into battle and like you might be killed. Like imagine the intensity of that feeling. Feel that and scream at the top of your lungs. That's an amazing exercise. I do it when I'm driving around the car, just like screaming at the top of my lungs. Things like that, like just like do, and you could do this in front of your partner. Like communicate with them. Hey, I'm going to do like this primal masculine embodiment exercise. It might be a little intense, so like no harm is going to come to you. And stand in front of your partner and just like this kind of stuff, and she'll probably love it, and you will feel that's that primal confidence. So like just finding outlets for it. This is the thing, is you need to express it in some way that doesn't harm people. Maybe that's like like breaking things, like taking a, I don't know, old furniture or like a wooden box or something, just like smashing it to pieces, something like that helps you connect with that energy. And this is again why I think like practicing a martial art is a good outlet. Having a punching bag, just beating the shit out of it, something like that, and it will really help you to start moving this aggressive energy that you've been suppressing probably your entire life. When I started doing this, all this deep anger, rage, resentment, intense, like really intense stuff started coming out. And I realized I have been deeply suppressing this my entire fucking life. Holy shit. And once I started to move it, it was very liberating, and it gave me so much more energy to work with, and just was freeing. And I start to bring that into the bedroom in like a balanced, productive way, and it's amazing. All right. With that, guys, jump off. Thanks everyone for joining. It's always good to connect with you guys. And yeah, again, my Sex God Masterclass next Friday. Well, next week, Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th, October 13th. It's free. You're going to learn basically how to be a sex god. Sign up for free. Link in the YouTube description, link in my Instagram bio. And I will see you guys soon. Take care.